Hello everyone, I am back with a different video today, and it's, something a bit different, something I've not featured before, but something I do take interest in, I suppose. Probably about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years ago now, somebody said to me, they made a comment on one of my videos saying, Jake, I'd love to see the street lights in your road. What is lighting your street? So I said, yeah, all right, fair enough. I'll do a video on that. It may even be next year, but I'll do one. Anyway, I never got round to it and time went on. But I'm making it up to you because I've got one better than that. I've actually got one here. So a few years ago now, 2 years ago, my street went completely LED. And this is actually the very lantern that was lighting the road outside my house. So I was originally going to do a video of the lanterns up on the columns in the road, obviously, because that's what this person wanted to see, but they've all been replaced for LED. So I can't do that anymore, but I think this is better really, because this gives you a close-up that I could never do with them mounted in the street, obviously, because I can show you the insides of this one. So this was on the opposite side of the road to me. We live on a side road, so these are 35 watt SOX lamps that were used. They weren't higher wattage or anything. They weren't like they have on the big roads, the Philips MA90s and all of that. These were just Thorn Beta 5s or Beta 5s, however you want to pronounce it, to light the side roads in the town that I'm from. So obviously different councils used different lanterns for different areas, obviously, but this type of lantern is incredibly common. Well, it was incredibly common around where I live, but obviously they've all gone to the LED rubbish now. So yes, I've fitted it to this, I don't know what you want to call it, this stand really, that I made today. I'm quite impressed with it, to be honest. I mean, it's doing the job, but it's got to do. It's just holding this while to do the demonstration. Amazing what you can knock up with a bit of old firewood, isn't it? So, as I said, it is a Thorn Beta or Beta. I said Beta. Thorn Beta 5. 35 watt SOX low pressure sodium lantern with a photo cell on the top, a Super 6, does that say? With 70 lux. Now, the new lanterns they fitted have only got photo cells with 12 lux, so they don't come on until it's practically pitch black, which is way after they should be on, which is kind of pointless, I think, but it's not up to me, is it? And, I was speaking, because actually I'd come home from work, it was my dinner hour, and I came home and I saw the guy replacing all the street lights, so I got talking to him, which is how I came to get it really. Well, I took a few, I think I took 4 of these. Yeah, and he agreed with me. The actual guy that was fitting them had been told to fit them, obviously, because it's the LED takeover, but he agreed. He said the old lanterns were better, they're more efficient, they don't give glare, which, is dangerous if you're driving, because the LEDs can dazzle drivers. And also the parts inside can be replaced if they ever go faulty. But the LEDs are sealed units and the drivers go after a few years, so what's the point? And he said as well, okay, these are 35 watt, which is still very efficient in my opinion. The LEDs that they've replaced them with are 15 watt. So it's not it's not a massive, I know it's using under half of the electric or wattage or whatever you want to say, but I don't think it's such a big difference that it warrants replacing every single low pressure sodium fixture there is, but that's what they've chose to do, isn't it? So I'll show you inside it if you like. So they've got a clasp on the front here. You open this somehow like that, and then it's sort of, there you go. and then the cover drops off. Now, again, I've noticed on the earlier ones, this was metal, this clip here, and it's plastic on this later one. And I know this is a later one, but this seems to snap on a few of them, which then leaves the bowl doing this, swinging in the wind. And, you know, years ago, obviously, when these lanterns were mainstream, I used to see them like this, and I thought, how the hell has that happened? Because obviously, it's funny, street lights are one of them things, unless you've seen one up close, you're not going to know, are you? So, I used to think, what is going on? And then you used to see them, probably in your area as well, with this, and it would have electrical tape wrapped around the top, and they just literally tape on the bowl. And I used to think, what the hell? And actually, all it is, and I think this is a stupid design, the one thing holding it up there, it might even, yeah, it'd probably wiggle it off, is a tiny, flimsy metal clip, which I can't actually get off at the moment. Got it, I think. So what happens is, it's not doing it now, which it's obviously not going to, because that's the way it goes when you try to show people stuff, isn't it? But yeah, see. So that's what happens basically. So that clip snaps because it goes brittle. That then dangles in the wind for 2 weeks, on with the stupid small hinge there. That then blows off onto the grass verge, as you've just seen it fall off there. And then the council come and mow over it with the big lawnmower and shatter it into a million pieces. Which is then how you get left with lanterns looking like this, with all the underside exposed to water. So water usually gets in here somewhere eventually. They do last a while like this, but then the water gets in and it trips the MCB in the column. Obviously this one doesn't have one because this is just wired up to show you. But yeah, so that's basically a typical council street light, isn't it? It's got a Philips low pressure sodium bulb in. It's obviously got a fair few hours on. It's starting to go black there now. But again, the guy, he was dead nice. He gave me about 4 of these heads and he gave me about 4 of these lamps, and I think he gave me 2 spare as well. And I said to him, what's going to happen to all the others that I don't take? And he said, it's going to get scrapped and thrown away, which I suppose is the way the world works, isn't it? I said, do you not want to sell them on eBay or anything? And he said, no. He said, not worth it to him. But, you know, they are on eBay and they are going for like 50 quid a shot. So, but each to their own, isn't it? So, yeah, I'll see if I can hook that back on in a minute. But to me, that is an appalling design. Just a tiny, tiny little clip there. It's no wonder you see so many of these missing the bowls. You see lots of different street lights missing the bowls, don't you really? Yeah, okay. So what I'll do now is we'll take the bulb out and I will show you the gear inside it. So there's a bulb or lamp. Bulbs are for planting, lamps are for lighting. There it is. And they now, because Philips, which was the last company making them, I said this one was a Philips, wasn't it? Philips are charging £60 a time for one of these now, brand new. But I don't think they make them anymore, so that's just old stock going. So once the old stock go, that will be it. So it's lucky they last about 10 years, really, isn't it? So we've got the lamp holder there, which I'm not going to touch because I don't feel like dying today. Here's the label, Thorn EMI. Actually, it's not EMI, is it? It's way past that. What am I talking about, Thorn EMI? Anyway, there's the sticker, IP54. Do you know what you do see as well? There's a little seal in here, right, all at the top, all the way around. The camera's not picking it up properly, all the way around. And it seems to perish. And when it perishes, the bowl fills with water and it looks like a fish tank then. But you know, I can't complain because obviously this one is probably pretty old now. There's no rust on it or anything, is there? This one is in quite good condition. So they are quality units, but they are flawed, I think, in terms of stuff like that. So you undo this screw here. Put my foot on the base of the thing because I don't want it to fall over. And then the gear tray drops open. Like so. That is hinged, which is quite a good feature, really. There we go. So it's got basically whatever that thing is, an igniter and whatever that thing is. So obviously something in here is one's gonna be the ballast, isn't it? And one's gonna be, actually what is that thing then? Because that's the ballast, surely to God. Oh, that's a capacitor. I thought that was an igniter. I don't know, I'm not a streetlight putter-upper. As you know, alarms and vacuum cleaners are my speciality, but I do take an interest in stuff like this. So I'm glad I got the opportunity to show you one of these. What's this? A tridonic? Yeah, so that's the igniter. Okay, so that's the igniter. This is the, what did I say it was? The capacitor. I didn't know it had to have a capacitor. And then that is whatever that is. So that's that. The wiring in here is pretty poor, but that's only because I've wired it up for a demonstration. Obviously you wouldn't have all this slack, but it is clamped there, so it's fine. And then obviously there's 2 security bolts in there, and they're bolting it to the arm basically. Obviously because I don't have a column, I don't have a streetlight column installed in my kitchen. I don't know about you, but I don't. So it's on a wall mounting bracket on the big wooden thing that I made, basically. So that's the setup anyway. So, yeah, and obviously there's the wiring in there for the photocell socket. The cells, I don't want to pull it off because it's probably delicate and I can just imagine it going wrong. This is probably brittle, and if I pull it too hard, it'll shatter or crumble away in my hand. But obviously that is a socket, so the idea is if the photocell breaks, because they're supposed to be easily repairable, aren't they, you can pull the cell off and fit a new cell. Yeah, and really if you wanted to, you could cut all this out and just have it as an automatic lamp basically. You could just wire the lamp holder and the photocell up and it'd work with a normal lamp. I know I have seen in some areas the council doing that. They cut the gear out, they leave it in but it's disconnected, they fit an LED cob bulb and then convert them to LED. And personally, I think that is better than fitting new LED lanterns because that is not as wasteful and these are far more easily repairable. So yeah, so that's the insides of that basically. I'm sure a lot of you will know a lot more about that than I do because I am not a streetlight person. I showed you that, didn't I? So we'll put it back up and I'll fire it up for you basically because I'm sure you'll all want to see it on, won't you? And I've certainly not gone to all this trouble to not show it you on either. So we'll just do that up again. That screw in there. Okay. That's that. Now we've got to put this stupid thing back on, haven't we? Wonder if it'll click on dead easy now. Probably not, because that'd be too easy, wouldn't it, if it went on nicely. Oh, it has. Wow. Fancy. Yeah, so that is on that tiny little hinge in the middle. Silly design. So here we go, we'll put our lamp back in now. It's kind of awkward to do with the... Well, it's awkward to do when you're recording it, that's for sure. So, trying to do it one-handed, you see, aren't I? Which isn't the best. So with that threaded through, push and twist, and that's locked that in place like that. And then the bowl just goes up, and then you do the front latch up. Again, very awkward to do one-handed, but that doesn't really matter, does it, when it's on the street, because most street light repairmen aren't recording it for YouTube, are they? So might have to put the camera down for this one, I think. Oh no, have I got it just about? No. I want you to see it happening, really. You probably can't see much, can you? Because my fingers are in the way, but... Has that got it? Go on. There you go. So that is that back on. So what we'll do is we'll turn the lights off, and I'll show it you coming on, basically, because all this time it has actually been plugged in and switched on. The only reason it's not on is because the main lights are on, obviously. So I'll turn the normal lights off, and with a bit of luck, it should come on. So here we go. Obviously, when it goes dark, it's a gradual decrease, isn't it? So, but this is just going to black out straight away, which might confuse... Well, actually, it won't confuse it, but it might take a few seconds for it to come on. But, yeah, so let's look at it warming up. So, I'll turn the lights off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Aww. God, it looks weird seeing the kitchen lit up like this, but... So there it is. It's fired up as it should have done. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple to wire it up, as I said. So you would have a main incomer coming in to the bottom of the column. You would then have your RC... Well, I don't know what it's probably been... Originally, it would have been a little fuse. Then they went to MCBs and RCBOs and all of that lark. I don't know what they have nowadays, what the modern equivalent is. And then from your protection device, we'll call it, you then have the wire coming up, which is basically just clamped to the back here. And that goes straight into the head. Yeah, so obviously this has got a photo cell. The really early lanterns that did not have a photo cell used to have a time clock mounted in the column, which is very inconvenient because they're not as reliable, and you'd have to go around twice a year changing them all to accommodate for the dark nights. There's a cobweb on that there. You just see it there. So yeah, that's not ideal really, but there are, you know, I've seen well, not these particular lanterns, these are low pressure sodium. I've seen high pressure sodium on the motorway and things where the lanterns actually don't have their own each individual photocell, and they are on a time clock, but it's one master time clock controlling 10 or 20 lanterns at a time. It's not just one for each lantern, because that would just be a nightmare when you're trying to change the time. But photocells are much better than time clocks for street lights, because the photocell's there and you can forget about it, and that's it then. You don't need to worry about it until the cell goes faulty. But even when it does, you just pull that off and put a new one on, which is miles better than having to rewire a time clock in. So these start out red, obviously, and then as they warm up, you see the glow moving along inside there, and they get more and more orange until they're fully burning orange, and then that's basically it for 8 hours until they switch off. It's hard to tell on the camera, but it's more orange at this end. You can actually see, I think, no, it all looks orange on the camera, but it is still quite pink at this end and not as bright as it should be yet, but it is getting there. But yeah, so somebody asked to see the street lights on my road, and that, well, these aren't the street lights on my road anymore. The street lights on my road is boring LED rubbish, but it was a mixture of Fosco's, I can't remember the model, and the Thorn Beta 5s. Well, actually, when I was really young, it was fully lit by Fosco lanterns, quite old ones. And then when I was about 12 or 15, they changed the majority of them to these Thorn Beta 5s. And then again, 10 years after that, they've all gone to LED. Right, well that seems to have warmed up now to the maximum anyway. So yeah, it is quite bright and it is quite an efficient light, you know, and that is the thing. I can stare into it directly at this height quite comfortably and it's not dazzling me. An LED, it'd burn your retinas out. So these are far, far better and safer for driving, I think, which is one reason I disagree with the LED switchover, because these are anti-glare lanterns. LEDs are not anti-glare lanterns. And again, as I keep saying, I am not a professional highway maintenance person. Back when I was an apprentice though, I have fitted low pressure sodium streetlight fixtures and maintained them, as well as high pressure. I've not so much worked on the LED stuff because when I was an apprentice, that wasn't really a thing yet. It was just coming in. So these were the majority when I was learning still. And I fully think that these lanterns should still be the mainstream, really. But obviously, there's a lot of people that don't agree with me, so it's going LED, and these will never come back, and they'll stop making parts for them. They've already stopped making the lamps. So what will happen is, unless you can buy the cob bulbs and just cut all the gear out and have it as a normal lamp, then you can't really keep the low pressure sodium. Yeah. Thinking back, it might have been nice to be a streetlight engineer. I wouldn't have minded doing that, to be honest. On your own in the cherry picker, no one bothering you. But all the ones, by the way, all the ones of these I worked on and fitted were owned by a housing association. I won't say which one, but they were privately owned lamps. So I wasn't working with the council or anything. They weren't council-owned street lights, but they were just the same with the full column and the head. So they were exactly the same as the council ones. They just weren't owned by the council. So we were using them to light private roads, car parks, and at the back of buildings using wall brackets similar to that one. I'm trying to think back to what ours had. Some of the ones I maintained, I never fitted these because I'm not that old. Going back to when I was saying some had time clocks in, I have maintained and replaced lamps in ones where there's been time clocks in the column, and I've took the door off to isolate the head, and it's been a time clock there. So if you do that, you always check to make sure the time clock is still set accurately, obviously, because they can, as I said, become a bit unreliable. But all the ones I fitted had photocells. They never had any time clocks or anything. And they all just had a little circuit breaker in the column. They didn't have any fuse. Well, again, the old ones with the time clocks, as I said, they had little pull-out fuses, cartridge fuses. But all the rest had RCDs, all the new stuff. So, yeah. It is quite nice sometimes, though, when you're driving past somewhere and you see one of these lights and you think, oh, I fitted that, and then you wonder how long it will be before they go to LED. I don't think the ones I fitted will be going to LED anytime soon, though, because as I said, they're privately owned, so the company that I fitted them on behalf of will want to use up all the stock of sodium lamps before they get replaced, and even then, they might just retrofit them with new lamps. So they might be here to stay. Yeah, because they had thousands and thousands of spare sodium lamps, and if they last for 10 or 12 years each, well, they're not going to run out anytime soon, are they? So yeah, you've seen it now at full brightness. There's the rest of the kitchen. So obviously it is quite bright for 35 watts, but obviously it's sodium, isn't it? So it's incomparable to incandescent. So I'll put the main ceiling lights back on and it'll cut out basically. So they're on full brightness now, so we'll just wait for this to shut off. And that is that. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please do leave a comment on the video. I hope you enjoyed this video of the X streetlights in my road. So yeah, and if you've got any suggestions or anything you want to see in particular, don't be afraid to leave a comment, as I said. But that's it for now. I have got a few more different street lanterns, as I've said. I've got some old Fosco ones, I've got some new Fosco ones, and I've got some Harvard technology ones. So if you want to see them, comment and I'll show you them as well. The Harvard ones are massive though, so I will not be fitting them to my homemade stand because it'd just knock it over. They were huge main road ones. Metal halide, they were metal halide. But yeah, I prefer the low pressure sodium, but that's just me. They're all better at different purposes, aren't they? So that's about it. So I'm going to wrap this up now and see you in the next one. Bye for now.